Good afternoon. No, it does work. Okay, great. Well, welcome to the 2017 Master Teacher Seminar. I'm going to be kind of tethered right here. We're having some microphone issues, so I'm going to use this, and so I'm going to try not to walk in front of our illustrious panel here. They do have a mic they can track back and forth, or they said they may just use teacher voices, and they may start there, and if you can't hear them, just raise your hand, and I'll say you need to use the mic. Just a reminder, friendly reminder, make sure your cell phones are silenced or vibrating. And then if you would like to text, tweet, see, I'm really showing my age here.
Hashtag KSMT 2017 if you're going to tweet about this.
Say that one more time.
Hashtag KSMT, Kansas Master Teacher 2017.
Okay, you ready to get that? Thank you. I am Dr. Roger Caswell. I'm the Executive Director of the Jones Institute for Educational Excellence. So we're off campus, but we are part of the Teachers College. And we look forward every year to the Master Teacher. The format this afternoon is very simple. We actually have 4 rounds. First round, the teachers will introduce themselves very briefly, so if you want to take notes or anything else, that's great. And then we're going to have a series of questions. They will all respond to each question in about 15 to 20 words. We'll see if they can be brief. And then we'll open up the same question for about half of them to elaborate. And then I'll go on to the next question. And then round 3, I have one question, and they will all elaborate in depth. And then we'll have round 4 will be a speed round. I will occasionally ask for participant questions, maybe not after every question, but at least after a couple questions, and then there will be questions and answers at the very end. So, questions on the format? Okay, so the first question is, each master teacher will introduce her or himself by stating your name, your school district, the grade level, subject matter taught, and the number of years of teaching. And we'll start right here. You want to start down there? That's good.
John
Okay, I don't think I need it. John Butcher, and I teach for the Blue Valley School District at Blue Valley Northwest High. I'm an art teacher, and I've taught 28 years.
I'm Melinda Idle, and I teach at USD 305, which is in Salina, and I'm a kindergarten teacher now, and I've taught 25 years.
Joni Hayden, and I teach at Fort Riley Middle School. I teach 6th, 7th, and 8th grade PE, and this is my 29th year of teaching.
I'm Jenny Hendricks. I teach in Dodge City, Kansas, and I teach physics, mainly to 12th graders. I teach a freshman class every once in a while. And I've been teaching for, I think, 17 years, but my math isn't very good.
My name is Kim Hett. I'm a 5th grade teacher at Andover Academy, which is a blended virtual school in Andover, Kansas, USD 385. And this is my 23rd year teaching.
My name is Brandy Lane. I teach in Auburn, Washburn, and Topeka. I teach 6th grade, and this is my 11th year teaching.
My name is Laura Schwinn. I teach here at USD 253 at Adam Prairie High School. I'm the AV Communications teacher, which is journalism, and this is my 15th year teaching.
And if I read the news article correctly, I think we have 140 some odd years of expertise up here. So it's just going to be an enjoyable afternoon. Okay, the first question. What philosophical belief has been the easiest to maintain throughout your career? And this is just the quick responses.
Well, this is kind of a standard answer. You've heard this a lot, but I'm gonna say that everyone can improve, and the other one that I'd add to that is the talent myth, which I may expand on a little bit.
And mine is that I believe all children learn differently at different paces, and that it is critical differentiation occur every single day in our classrooms.
And I would go with everyone, including teachers, educators, adults in the building. Everyone is differently abled.
I'm going to say creative problem solving.
That all students can learn, but getting there is very different for all kiddos.
Mine is that it is a privilege to be able to teach.
And I'm going to echo a lot of them. All students can learn. They each come with their own strengths and challenges, and that's our joy in teaching, is to reach those strengths and challenges.
They did a wonderful job. Give them applause because they kept it short. That's not always an easy thing to do. So now the next challenge is, can we elaborate? So,
Well, I just want to talk a little bit about the talent myth, because it's something that I run into every day in the art classroom anyway, and that is the belief that you need to be good at something before you learn about it. And I just don't believe that there is such a thing as talent. And I know that may sound pretty bizarre. If you check with someone that you think is truly talented, what you're going to find out is they've spent thousands of hours working at that without fail. I have never seen anyone that was just innately talented. I think there are different skill levels, but I truly believe that it's all in the work. And I've just seen that time after time. Real quickly, I had a girl that I had when I was teaching at Emporia High School, started off in 9th grade with me and in a sculpture class, and I would say that on a good day she would be considered average, and that was probably being generous. She kept taking classes with me all the way through her senior year. In her senior year, she won the Hallmark Award for the state of Kansas for a beautiful alabaster sculpture that she did. She ended up studying stone carving in Florence, Italy, and became the department chair of a prestigious Eastern college teaching sculpture. So I just firmly believe that it's all in the work that you do.
I can bounce off of that as well. I hear a lot of kids, I teach physics, and so a lot of kids come believing that they either can't do math, they can't do physics because they don't feel like they have the natural talent. And you know, the only reason we're all sitting up here is because we've practiced the art and science of teaching for hundreds of hours. And I, like John, I just, over and over, I see examples of kids that, and really I think that's what makes teaching so much fun, is that there is no natural talent. It's about your sustained effort and providing those experiences for kids to grow in the classroom and to find that motivation, to overcome that barrier which they feel like that talent or that YouTube video that they watched that made everything seem like it happened in 2 minutes just happens. My little cousin was over the other day, we were making a technical challenge cake. I know this has nothing to do with teaching, but it does. She's 7 years old, she's got her baker's apron on, and we had watched this show, and they'd made this really technical cake that took 2 hours to make in about 2 minutes. And she's over there measuring stuff out, she's like, man, it didn't happen this fast on TV. And you know, I think that's the same thing for art or physics or whatever we teach, you know. There is no talent, it's practice.
And if, make sure this is on. Is it on? Okay. And if I can add to that, I know this is pathetic, a PE teacher and she doesn't have a voice, but this is the way it is. If I can add to that, I often have students that come to middle school as a 11-year-old, 12-year-old, and they're not willing to try a new activity or new sport because they feel like there has been, because they haven't been doing it since they've been 3 years old. And so I think a challenge is to just to get those kids to embrace the fact and have a growth mindset that if you stick to it and you keep learning and you make small improvements every single time you try something, and you might fail, but to get them to stick with it, it's an amazing process to see them come out with something that when they realize they can actually do it when they had such low confidence when they start out. So I think that's a challenge for all teachers.
I want to talk about something totally different than that, but I do agree with all of those. And it's probably a soapbox I get on. I promise I won't talk on every issue, but differentiation. When I moved from 3rd grade, which I taught for 13 years, back to kindergarten, I thought that I was pretty good at differentiation. I felt like that was important to me then and that I was doing what I could in my classroom and felt good about it. And I moved to kindergarten and it literally knocked my socks off. I could not believe the different levels that kids come in. And from a child that literally could not get his fingers in the scissors to somebody that could cut an elaborate snowflake, from somebody that doesn't know a letter or a sound to kids reading on 3rd, 4th, 5th grade levels at times. And I just think we sometimes do an injustice to those kids if we do not differentiate and meet their needs at their level. I think, what kid would want to come back the next day if they're all doing the same thing that they've already learned, or feeling absolutely no success because we've set it way too high for them? So that would be my philosophical belief that I've stuck with, and I feel like it's improved, but I also feel like it's one of those I'd kind of like die for kind of things. It's that important to me in my classroom.
Okay, thank you. Number 2, what or who provides you the support needed to continue effective teaching?
Obviously, my administration would be the first thing that came to mind, but probably even more importantly, it'd be my fellow department members, but even more importantly are my students. And I think it's the cornerstone for everything is the relationships you have with these students. And it's what puts the gas in my tank every morning.
It's probably what you'll hear from a lot of people, but I do work in a wonderful district, and we have great administrative staff as well as district office level staff that supports, but also my coworkers and directly right there in my building. Besides that, throughout my career, I've always had a couple people that I can turn to that in the building that give me the most support. So on those days where I think I'm going to pull my hair out, I can talk to them, or something fails, those are the people I turn to, and then my family.
I would echo all of those things. In addition, I have 3 sons, and that really empowers me to do what's best for kids, because I always think, what would I want my kids to be learning from that teacher? How would I want my kids to be treated? And so I think that's for me, that's a huge sense of support. They may not see it that way, but to me, it's a huge sense of support.
We were talking earlier, and I think Laura had the best adjectives. I'm going to throw my comment down to her. She's going to take it from me.
Do you guys want?
Okay,
Or do you
yeah,
wanna
go ahead.
Obviously, our colleagues are our family. You need to find your teacher family. When you are in a school, you might feel lonely in your classroom, but you have those peers that you can go to. You have that set core group of people. Maybe it's your department, maybe it's your teachers that you started with, but you have that teacher family. Those people that will help you, that will support you, that are there for you if you have a bad day. You can go to them and I like how John said, fill your tank. They'll give you that motivation, that encouragement that you need. So as going into the profession, find your teacher family. Find those group of people that you can go to, that you can talk to, that you can, they're there for you and you're supporting each other. And that's one of the most important things that I found is I have my teacher family at school. And it could be different people on different days depending on my needs for that day. But your teacher family is so important.
And I can elaborate on that a little bit. In my job situation, it's a little unique in that twice a week I teach virtually to my little kiddos. And they're just like, they're on a screen. It's like the Brady Bunch. And I've got a whiteboard going, and I've got all this technology, and it's so much fun because I actually get to go into their homes. That's what I brag about. I get to go in their homes twice a week, which always isn't a good thing. But it's really unique because the 4 of us elementary teachers actually share a room. And so we are all in an 800 square foot space. We hear each other on the phone. We hear each other how we talk to students and things like that. But without those girls, I don't know what I would do. We bounce ideas off of each other constantly. There is absolutely no shame in taking ideas from other people. And that's what we do. We constantly collaborate. We constantly look at our students. Okay, what do we need to do next time? What do we need to, we're constantly reflecting. But I consider myself very lucky that I have these other teachers in the same classroom. It's really hard. It's almost like roommates. I mean, we complain if the refrigerator's too full or something like that, but it truly is a family. And I would totally agree with Laura that you find your school family will become your family.
I would just add, everyone said all of the best ideas, but I would just add that I found it much more supportive when my school family was very positive. And yes, they'll allow me to vent, but they'll always bring it back to how can we go forward? How can we move forward? How can we make this a positive situation? And we never dwell on the hardships. We move past it. And I also have to say that one of my biggest supports outside of education is my dad. And if my teacher family, my school family is just not saying the right thing, I always have somebody else to give me an outside perspective. And I think that I've gained a lot from him outside of education too, so I can kind of have more than one filter.
Yeah, I did just want to tag on one thing. Brandy said something important. You know, there's so many wonderful ideas from outside the community that can help you as a teacher. It doesn't have to be a teacher that supports you. And inside school, you need to find young teachers that are just a little bit above you or maybe in your same class, but you also need to find some older teachers that can support you through some of those tough experiences that the younger teachers might not, they just might not have enough in their toolbox. So make sure it's, you know, wide.
I'd like to add on to that too. I know when you're student teaching, because I remember when I student taught, you know, you're in this building, you're the new person, everybody knows each other, here you are, getting introduced at a faculty meeting. Nobody knows you, you've never done this before. But just remember that teaching is not a solitary activity, it is a group activity, and I'm going to echo everything else. I've got people I work with that are, I see the people I work with more than I actually see my wife every day. And they are truly family, so never feel like when you go out and get your job that you're going to be teaching by yourself, because you will not be. You're going to be in a big community. And I think that's pretty comforting. So.
And I think some of the worst teachers that I have witnessed have been loners.
Yep.
Have been those that isolate themselves. And I hate to say, but you know, just like with any profession, there are ones out there that just aren't meant to be. And those are definitely the loners.
Yeah, that's true.
The ones that do not want to collaborate.
Okay, I'm going to open it up to the floor. Does anyone have a question either about philosophical beliefs, the support that you need, or questions about either one of those?
I brag about you to them, that there would be just everybody raising their hands. You can't make the dean feel or look bad.
Well, I could say that I put numbers on your seats and you look okay, good. All right. Yeah.
Okay, I wasn't sure if we were talking pro. This doesn't really pertain to the philosophy, but what would be your, if you could give one tip to a starting teacher, what would it be?
We just talked about how important that is.
I got this. Okay. I think like right off the bat, and it just echoes what we've already said here, connect with at least one adult and connect with at least one student. You know, as soon as you can, make that connection, and then it just becomes a network for you, a supportive network.
Come back the second day.
It gets better.
Kind of in the same line, same vein there is, not a tip, but what were some of the most difficult challenges you faced as a first-year teacher?
As a first-year teacher for me, I would say balancing my budget, getting paid once a month, was very difficult. So come September 15th, I was totally broke, but thank goodness I had my parents. It was really cute too, because my first year teaching, all my students' parents knew too, so they took care of me. So budget wisely, but I also think too, don't put so much pressure on yourself as far as you have a good toolbox, but it's nothing compared to what's going to happen. And I think that just know that it's going to be okay. You're going to have days where you totally bombed a lesson, the kids didn't learn a thing. Hopefully it's not a whole day, but maybe an hour or something that they didn't do that. But you're going to have days that aren't great. But just know, you know, I'm pretty sure everyone in here isn't in education because you're going to get a huge salary and all that. There's something inside of you that you want to give back or you want to participate. Just remember that on those hard days. There was one day in particular that I remember. This kid, he gave me grief the entire year. I loved him, but he just gave me grief. And I'll never forget the mom on the last day of school came to me and brought me this huge bouquet of flowers, and she broke down. I mean, just started bawling in front of me. And I was like, oh my God, what did I do? And she basically thanked me for being such a positive role model, where he had teachers before me that couldn't stand his orneriness, and I kind of liked it. And so I called my husband that day, and I said, or actually he was my boyfriend at the time, I called him and said, don't ever let me forget this moment. And he still brings that, that's been 20 years ago, he still brings that up every time I come home, and I'm like, God, you know, today was awful, and blah, blah, blah. He goes, up, remember Brandon. And so I was like, okay, this is why I do what I do.
I have something, can I say it?
Yep.
I have a good story too. My advice would be to be humble. I think when you leave college, you feel pretty hot stuff, and you deserve it, okay? It can be tough getting through. But I remember I was teaching in inner city Memphis. I had a kid who was kind of being a jerk. I was standing outside, and this is an embarrassing story, but you'll have them too after your first year. I was standing in my high heels that I wore because I was shorter than all of my students and tiny. And I was telling him that he was being no good in my class, yada, 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 yada. Because he wasn't studying, he didn't know what a mole was, and the 6.02 times 10 to the 23rd, I mean, who remembers that stuff anyway? Anyway, I went down to the counselor's office, and she happened to be my mentor. And I was telling her how upset I was with this kid, and she just looked at me and she kind of sat back and she said, well, you know, in the South, well, honey, he's got a real hard life. And she proceeded to tell me that his brother had been arrested 6 months earlier for drugs. He was working full-time outside of school to pay off the guy who wanted to kill the brother when he got out of jail. And, you know, here I was making this kid feel more rotten than he already felt. So there's going to be things that you're not going to know about your kids. So you need to sit back, take some time to listen first, listen to other people around you, and be humble. Because you are rock stars, but humble ones.
I just wanted to say too, when you get out there, one of the things that I remember the most and still deal with, not that my age is the same, is parents. And when you first start, usually you might be younger than a lot of the parents that your kid, you know, the kids you're teaching, and that can be really tough. One, you don't feel like you're confident. You may not have the confidence yet to deal with that, but just always try to look back at every comment parents make to you, because sometimes they can cut. and I don't think they mean them that way, but always try to step back and say, wow, this is their most precious commodity. This is their heart that they are trusting me with. And it makes things a little easier when you take that into consideration. It helps you choose your words more carefully, and it helps you see them in a different light sometimes. Because sometimes when you're sitting on the other table and you have to deliver tough news to a parent, I mean, nobody wants to hear that their child's struggling or needs extra help. Nobody wants to hear that their child's a behavior problem. And so try to put yourself in their position before you choose your words, and that's not always easy to do.
You may have 30 kids, but they have one, and that's their most precious thing. So you have to be empathetic to that, even if you don't have children yourself.
And if and when you do have children of your own, your teaching will change.
It will.
Your perspectives will change greatly. One of the struggles I had in my first year of teaching, I taught at 2 different elementary schools on Fort Riley, PE. They had PE 2 days a week, plus they move all the time. And I went to a small school, nobody ever moved. Bruce McDougall was the new kid, and he came in 5th grade, and he's still the new kid for me. But it was a revolving door, and it still is. It's slowed down a little bit, and I guess I'm just used to it. But that was such a new learning, teaching environment for me, and I had to really embrace it. I have learned a lot from that, but it was a little difficult at first.
I think, I'm sorry, this is kind of one of the questions you had asked anyway, so I think I'm the assistant varsity volleyball coach at Emporia High School, and we've had new head coaches every year. The head coach this year, she was a brand new teacher. And we started volleyball practice before school started, and she was so, so nervous. And she's like, I'm just so nervous about the first day. I just said, just breathe. You're gonna be okay. Breathe in, breathe out, you're fine. You guys have all the tools. You have your content, you've been learning that. You have your education backgrounds through Emporia State. You're gonna be okay. You're gonna get butterflies. I still get butterflies the first day. We're on trimesters at Emporia High now. Every first day of the trimester, I get butterflies. That's how I know that I'm in the spot that I should be. I'm there for a reason. I get those butterflies because I'm excited. I'm a little bit nervous, but I'm excited to teach those new kids that come into my classroom. So all of the veteran teachers are feeling the same way that you feel the first day. We're nervous. Those kids walk in the room, we get excited. We know we're there for the right reasons. They're the reason we're there, so breathe. You'll be okay. It'll be all right.
Hey, one other thing I'd like to say, don't be afraid to make mistakes, because I guarantee you're going to make mistakes. And I mean, even last week, I was giving a soldering demonstration that I've done 1,000 times. And I'm in there, I've done it 3 times that day. I've got all the kids around me. I'm doing the solder joint. The solder keeps falling off at the ring that I'm trying to repair. I think it was 8 or 9 times. My lab assistant, who's been with me for 4 years, I hear her there back, her behind me. I hear chuckling going on. And I turn around and my whole class erupts laughing. And you know, when I was first starting out, I'd probably be going, don't you laugh at me. But I started laughing too, and we were fine. So, I mean, even after 28 years, you're gonna make mistakes all the time, but it's how you react to that. So, don't be afraid to make them.
What's the best advice you would give someone on like taking their first job? That's kind of the position that some of us are in right now. So what would you say to someone in that position?
Right, like you have options and what job to take, or
like how do you know which one to take or what?
that's a good problem to have.
Yeah.
The first job was offered to me, I took it because I was worried. I wanted a job, but obviously, you know, it's different for every person. But you're gonna know if you feel. I had a couple interviews. I went to my first interview. They offered me the job that day. I went to my second interview, and I was walking around the building, and I was like, I just don't feel like this is for me. This isn't where I want to be. And I called the other school and said, I'll take the job.
Have you gone to the schools and kind of toured
Yeah.
them? And I would agree that you're going to get a feeling for maybe the staff that feels more supportive or has more, development opportunities. I got hired in December, so it was definitely take whatever you can get. It was a good move for me. But.
And in my case, I would say, take whatever's offered.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had a scenic route through college. I crammed the 4 years into 6. It was great. However, yes, you can always retake a class. Yeah,
retake a party.
So anyhow, and Ford had this great graduation rebate program, so I bought a car. I did not have a job. And then I ended up taking a job in August because I had interviewed with them at our career fair at college, and it was still open. And I was so happy, and I took the job. I was going to be there a year, now 29 years later. But it's funny, it took me about 20 years to realize I was not their first pick. I was that warm body a week before school started that they said, oh, she's good, hire her. So sometimes you have to just, it depends on what your situation is. You guys sound like you were top notch. So it took me that long to realize that, man, I was not their first pick, but I was very excited to get the job. I did get my car paid off. So those were all good things. But
Take it.
Yeah, take it.
And don't be afraid to do your research. If you've been offered a couple jobs, research. Figure out, is that school right for me? You'll know.
And I think some of the questions you need to ask yourself about if the school is right for you. During your interview, you need to ask things that are important to you. Like for me, it would be, what's the student or what's the teacher's ability to be creative with lesson plans? Are you open to, us experimenting with how we teach? Or, is there a lesson plan? Do you have to turn that in each week? Are they looking at it? Are there coaches that, are helpful? Is there a structure for professional development that if you are struggling, you can get help in that area? I think sometimes in education we need to think a little bit like you probably have friends that are going into business or marketing or something like that. But when they go on a job interview, they're asking questions about like, well, what are some of the benefits of working here, And you should be asking those questions. Small schools, for example, do we have to coach something? Are we going to be pressured? I mean, they won't tell you that, but you could ask what percentage of people are coaching something, involved in extracurricular activities. I think Laura's right. Do your research on your principals. Are the principals actively involved in professional organizations? Are they well known through the state? Those are things that you really should be asking as teachers. I didn't do it, so don't do it like me. But I think you should be interested in those things. And the philosophy that the school has is especially important.
Okay, last question for now, then we'll come back.
Okay, so kind of piggybacking off of what she asked. So as someone who has been offered a job and will be moving away for it, what would you recommend for someone who is, like, I don't know how far you guys had to go for your first job, but what would you guys recommend for someone who is moving away from pretty much everybody?
Away from family too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going 5 hours west for my job, so.
Good for you.
That is awesome. Yes.
I'm sure the West
I would think of it as an adventure, and I really think too that the first thing you need to do is make connections with people at your school. Be involved. I always tell my kids, or kids in my school, we're a K-12 school, so the kids getting in high school, I said my best advice to you is always be involved, and I think teachers need to do that too. Don't stress yourself out, but the more you're involved in outside things, whether it's with KNEA or whether it's with, you're on a committee, social committee, or something like that, that's going to help you build relationships. So I would definitely try to be involved. Don't be afraid to volunteer for something right away, and that will help you get involved or feel comfortable.
We have a new teacher at our school this year, and she emailed several committees or members on several committees and said, I understand there might not be a place for me on this committee, but if there's any work I can do or if there's any way I can just observe, she just wanted to get her hand out there. And I was really impressed that she took that step on her own. And she's been invited to several meetings and has gotten some opportunities just because she was so willing. My first school didn't put anybody on a committee their first year, which I appreciated my first year, but you might find that out. But I agree, just as many connections as you can make.
My first job was 3 hours from my closest relative, so I got involved. I teach high school, so it's easy to volunteer to help, work a volleyball game or do those kinds of things, be on committees. My school was really good about, these are the newer teachers, make connections with them even before I took the job, or not before I took the job, before I started teaching. They may help make those connections for me. So just, obviously the connections are a big deal, and getting involved is huge. Even if you're not going far away, get involved. Be a part of the school. That's something that I have to say no to sometimes because I get too involved, but that's okay.
Kids will love you when they see you at their basketball game, when you go to hear the band play. I mean, it makes a huge difference, so. And the other thing is you're going to be a teacher. It's not like you're going to be, I don't want to say another occupation, but you're going to be welcomed by the community anyway.
Yeah.
So
the school that I'm going to, they even told me that if I got the theater along with my English, that they would get a forensics team out there for me. So they want me to get involved.
Yeah. And they want to keep you.
Yeah.
They want to mold you to their liking. They want to keep you. So yeah.
Are you going way out western Kansas?
Yeah, I'm going to Midland.
Oh, ooh, awesome. Right.
Yeah.
First of all, they're going to try to get you married. I'm not joking.
Yeah.
So
And
yeah.
adjust to the time zone.
Yeah, I would, when you go far away, my first job was 13 hours away, then I moved to Santiago, Chile, and I was like days away. You should know that you're going to be lonely sometimes. it will be very hard to be away from such a loving, wonderful community. But I think what other teachers are telling you is that community is there, and it will be in Western Kansas. Wonderful place to be. There is as much art and culture as you want, but you have to actively find it. In the city, you can go a couple blocks and find a cool person to talk to. But in Western Kansas, you have to be a little more creative. And it doesn't mean they're not there. You just have to go out and find them. So,
And
good
when
luck.
I was,
I think it's
when
gonna be
I was
fun.
at my first school, it was a pretty small community, and I would go to the grocery store, and it was like I was a celebrity. The Schwinn's here, and then the kids would see me at school the next day. I saw you at the store. Yeah, I remember. That store in town. So you kind of have that little celebrity status just a little bit, which is kind of a fun connection, making those connections with the kids. So.
Great. Wonderful questions, wonderful questions. I'm going to jump to question 4 because it seems to follow, then I'll jump back to question number 3. So number 4, what piece of advice would you provide a first-year teacher on her or his first day? We had quite a bit of talk about the first year. What about that very first day?
Go ahead.
I already answered mine. Breathe. Breathe. You're going to be okay. It's going to be all right.
I said start a journal.
I really like that one
I know,
because
I
I
wish-
didn't do that. Pepto-Bismol and just breathe.
Yeah, I think, you're not gonna remember the first day, to be honest. Just survive. You should make enough plans to get to the first 3 days, and then get through the weekend and start all over again. That's a plan for like the 5th day.
And I already mentioned this connecting with at least one adult and one kid, but sometimes you have to fake it till you can make it. So just put that big smile on, put a little smile in your style, and you'll do well.
Well, I have a couple things, and they are definitely elementary-like, I'm sure. One, greet them at the door. Be there at the door. And I know it's definitely with kindergartners, but it doesn't matter if you're teaching 5th graders, 6th graders. Meet them at the door so they know how excited you are to have them in your room. They're your new family. The other thing, over-plan. I mean, over-plan, because at noon you're going to be, when you run them to lunch for 20 minutes, you're going to say, oh, I've gotten through everything on my list, and you're going to have to plan more. And it just, I don't know how it is. Even after 25 years of teaching, I think I have got enough here for the first 3 days, and it's over. And so over-plan, start those procedures a little bit on the first day, because you can't teach procedures too much the first couple weeks. Even the first day, if there's one thing you're going to pick it and hit it. And then, my mind just left me. Oh, I know. It sounds silly, but read to them. I mean, kids fall in love with a teacher that reads to them. And that's what you want on the first day.
You know, I'm sitting here thinking, here's an elementary teacher, I'm a high school teacher. She says this is for elementary. It's all the same for high school. You know, let them know that you're glad that they're in your room and just relax. And, you know, there's nothing that you can do in one day that's gonna derail your year.
Yeah.
So,
You're
I
not
just
gonna
remember
ruin
my
it.
first day going, these guys are huge.
I do the opposite.
Any elaboration?
I want to mimic read to middle level. If you're middle level, first of all, welcome to the middle. It's awesome. But read to them and make that the one thing you don't let go. Don't let it fall off your stove, you know, and put back burner. Just read to them. I remember I've taught middle school as well, and I remember taking them outside and just reading to them, and it's some of my favorite memories.
Okay. What is one of the biggest strengths in education today?
Well, I just have to say, you know, you read the newspapers and you see what's going on in Topeka, and that scares people to death. I just want you to remember, those kind of problems have always been going on, and in 28 years, all that has ebbed and flowed. I think the strength in education is the teaching community, and it doesn't matter what's going on politically. If you're motivated and the people you're working with feel the same way, it'll have no effect on your classroom at all. And so I'm going to have to say the strength of the teaching community.
And mine is teachers, definitely.
Yeah.
Nobody goes into this profession, I know you know it, for the money, for the summers off, for the notoriety. It is a tough job. It is absolutely not for the weak, physically or mentally or emotionally. But it's the teachers, and sometimes it's overwhelming when you think, wow, I really have the power in my hands, I hate to say it, but make or break this kid. And that's a scary thought, that we have that much power, but we do. And I think there are just amazing teachers that go out there every day and make a difference for our kids, and so teachers definitely.
I think there exists a lot of opportunity for a lot of different people. Certainly for the students, there's opportunities that, you know, by the time you're in your 5th, 6th, 7th year of teaching, we haven't even thought of yet. And opportunities for you as educators as well. And our job as educators is to embrace those opportunities. And I think our job as educators for the kids is to get the kids to feel that same way about all those different new opportunities that are available for them, to make them hungry for that, and to want to strive to take advantage of those things that are offered to them.
And I'll just elaborate on that. I just love, it just feels like there's more opportunity for teachers to be creative again in their space, create more creative lessons and problem-solving opportunities, whether it's in art or physics or whatever, and I just think that's a big strength, along with our teachers.
And I think we're finally starting to realize that there are those students who don't fit that traditional mold. That they're more non-traditional, whether they're sick and can't go to school from 8 to 4, whether they, want to pursue their dreams and be athletes or whatever, and an 8 to 4 environment doesn't work for them. So I think it's awesome that now we have things like my school that can blend virtual and traditional school. To allow for the flexibility of some of those kids that just don't quite fit into a traditional environment.
And mine's much in the same as I love education because it's progressive and we're always changing to accommodate our students and our communities and what we need to provide them for their success.
And exactly the same thing. We're always working to be creative to make our content relevant for our students. You can't teach the same way you taught when you first started. You're constantly evolving. I might even change, what I'm teaching based on, if I teach photography in the morning, that class is different than my afternoon class, and so I have to make that content relevant for all the students and be creative. And that's what I love about education is there's so much creativity involved. It's not the same from block to block, from day to day.
I'd just like to bring up one thing. It's really an amazing job to be a teacher, because it's one of the only jobs I know that you're going to see your boss in the hallway occasionally, and they're going to walk by and say hello, and you're going to walk into that room and shut the door, and that's your place.
Yeah.
It's almost like being self-employed, with health insurance. So it really is. It's a unique thing, and I'm just thankful that I made that decision so long ago to do this. I feel very lucky.
Okay, the theme this year is the joys of career teaching. So with that understanding, what has been thus far in your career, because we're not resigning yet or retiring yet. We are?
Just John.
He'll be subbing.
We already talked about that.
What has been one of the greatest joys of your career?
I'm just gonna say this, and it's hands down. I love my content. I'm an art teacher. I get to go teach art every day. How lucky is that? In a beautiful studio. But I'm gonna say this, by far the best part of my job has been the relationships I've formed with my students, and I'll call it friendships. And kids coming back after 10 or 15 years to visit, coming in to ask advice. I mean, I could really get choked up talking about this much longer, but I have really met lifelong important people to me, and I've learned from them as much as, you know, as I taught them. It's been a wonderful career. I'm just a very thankful guy.
And what I think is awesome about John is he was a stockbroker in New York before
Trained
he
in New
became a
York.
teacher. Whatever
Yeah.
that is. I don't know what that is, but it sounds important. And but I admire that. I love his story about, you know, yeah, he can make it on Wall Street, he can do all of this stuff, but he likes teaching art in Kansas at a high school.
Yeah,
And
it's-
that says a lot.
And that just goes to show too, I think, you know, there's a lot of different people that can be great teachers, all different types. And one other thing I would say, you might see a teacher that really just blows you away, just a great teacher, and it's great to take what they, you know, take some of their ideas, but don't try to be them, be you. Because you are going to be authentic and people are going to know it. And it's really important to be true to yourself in your classroom. So, you know, don't ever wander and try to be somebody that you're not, and don't be afraid to make mistakes, and don't be afraid to form those relationships, because if you form relationships with these kids, they'll do anything
Yep.
for you. If you haven't done that, I don't care if you're giving them Corvettes every day, they'll still skip your class. So, you know,
Well, I'll tell something short, and then I want to kind of elaborate on a different subject. Obviously, this award has reconnected me with some people that I haven't talked to for years, but one of the greatest things is to just read a little comment on Facebook from somebody that was a past student, and they say something like, "She's the reason I went into teaching," and I had no idea. So those are huge moments, and they come along, and you have to seize them. On a totally different note, probably most recent, is that my own daughter started her first year of teaching this year, and I just think, how cool is that? Because she has watched me all these years come home in tears sometimes, drag teacher bags home, work on weekends, work at night, not get family dinners made because I'm not where I'm supposed to be, and all of that, and hear how stressed I am before teacher conferences and things like that. But somewhere along the line, she must have also caught on to how much I love this job. And I've preached it from the beginning with all three of my kids, follow your passion. And I always hoped they knew that this was my passion, but I worried that with everything else that they see and hear on the news and everything else, they wouldn't. And she chose that. And it was an interesting thing when this very first year of teaching, she called me, you know, first day and second day, and just in tears, and said, "Mom, how did you do this? How did you do this for so long? And I hate this, and I don't want to go back, and I can't see myself doing this for as long as you did, and I think I've made a mistake." And I assured her, go back, and go back again, and it only gets better, and you're going to have those days, but you chose this, and I know it's going to fit right and feel right. And not too many weeks ago, that conversation came up again, and she's like, "You're right," and it is. It is the most rewarding thing you can possibly do that I can think of, and so that's, I mean, kind of a big deal to me, just that one of my own kids would choose it. So
I think for me is often I am given a heads up when I have a new student, which actually is like 2 or 3 times a week. Oh, by the way, we put her in your class, or we put him in your class because they don't like PE. I'm like, oh, thanks. So oftentimes I get the kid that does not like to move. They haven't had a pleasant movement experience, either in a PE class or they just don't like to move. And so for me, the greatest joy is having that kid at some point in time, they find something they really like. They're out there in the gym playing. They have a big smile on their face. This year it's Maria. I was told, oh, by the way, she doesn't like PE. And she's great. And the other day she said to me, "Do you think we could start an after-school badminton club?" I think maybe for Maria we will.
I think it's my turn, but I just feel, I don't like the linearness, so why don't we go down there like backwards?
Okay.
Very linear here.
Obviously, the relationships, I think John hit it on the head right there. The relationships you make with students. For me, also the successes that my students have in the career that they choose. whether that's the journalism career that they got from taking my classes. I have students who go on to major universities to be editors at their papers, and then they go on to New York City to work on a magazine, or they're in the music industry working in PR because of something they learned in my class, or they become teachers. A few of you are out there right now. Those successes make it all worth it. And it's not necessarily those big successes, it's those successes in the classroom. My classroom's very hands-on, so the first time they take a picture with a DSLR camera, or the first time they take a video, the first time they do a news story, the first yearbook spread that they finish. Those joys that I see on their faces are my joys. That's what makes me excited every day, and excited to go back into the classroom every day, and excited for every year. Every year we finish the yearbook, and I'm already excited about the next year's yearbook. And so just the successes of my students, and then also just the small successes that they have daily in my classroom as well.
That's my greatest joy as well, is the impact of the relationships that I'm forming on those students, the impact our relationship has. I started teaching 6th grade, and I learned that I would be teaching ancient civilizations. I took World Civ, and I didn't remember one bit about it. And so I got excited to learn about ancient civilizations, and then my students loved coming to social studies every single day. They got excited about it. They told me at the end of the year how much they loved ancient Greece, ancient Rome. And that just made me excited to learn more. And if I wasn't excited about the content, of course, but about them and their learning, they wouldn't have loved it as much. I had a student in class just a couple weeks ago. We're on one-step equations, algebra. And he was insistent that he was not going to learn it. He couldn't learn it. He didn't know it. It didn't make sense. And all of a sudden I heard 2. It's 2. X is X 2? Bradley, X is 2. And he's like, I solved for X! And he was so excited to solve for X. It was like 3 plus what equals 5. He was so excited. That pumps you up. You're like, I had part of that. And I only had part of it because I have a team that's amazing, and they make kids get excited to learn and excited to be successful. So it's just those little things, and the reason those little things happen is because we are forming relationships with kids, and we're saying, we care about you. We care about your success. We care about what you do.
I think my favorite thing is I love the ornery kids. I love the problem kids. I want to find out what makes them tick. How can I reach them? And so I think, taking leaps of faith is something that, I look back on and say, gosh, I can't believe I did that, but I'm so glad I did. For example, we had a struggling elementary school that did not get this certain award from the state in writing, and every other school in the district had gotten it. So I thought, okay, how can we solve this problem as a school? Well, I knew I loved teaching to write. I was on the state writing committee and graded essays for the state, and I loved the writing assessment. I loved it, and when we had to do the writing assessment. And so I basically thought, I'm going to create a position. I'm going to talk to my principal and say, hey, how can I want to do something. I want to make this better. I want teachers to be excited about teaching how to write. So I thought, what about being a writing coach? We'd never done it before. No one had ever heard of it. So I did a lot of research. I pulled in all this stuff. I gathered all the information. I had been to lots of workshops on teaching kids to write, especially boys who don't like to write, little kiddos. And I went to my principal and said, could I do this? And with the support of them and the board and everything else, I created a position. And I'm not patting myself on the back. I'm just saying, take leaps of faith. I had no idea my principal was going to be okay with this. I had no idea what I was doing. I just made it up, but it worked. And I got teachers excited about teaching kids to write because I would go into their classrooms and we would co-teach. And so then we started seeing results. The next year we got the award, finally, which I know it shouldn't be about awards, but it was a one problem, take leaps of faith. You know, if you know that you can reach a kid by doing something, ask if you can. Do something that's different. Think outside the box. You know, just don't go with the norm. Just because a kid is having an issue, don't just send them to the principal. Figure it out. Listen. And so that's probably one of my favorite things is just is taking those leaps of faith.
Can I just say one thing? That you said something golden right there about just because the kid's having a problem, don't send me to the principal. I never send anybody to the principal because to me, all that does is tell the kids I can't handle it.
Yeah.
You got to handle your own discipline, and they'll respect you for it, and you'll be glad you did that in the long run.
Okay, I think I'm last. I don't know, how do you ask a kid in a candy store which candy to choose? That's the way I feel about teaching. Over the years, I've even fallen in love with the things that I used to hate, like grading, and now I love it. But I got this email the other day from a parent, and I'm going to read it to you, and then I'm going to tell you what my greatest joy is. I have to pass on some things that my kid said about you tonight. We were talking about a classmate of his. I'm sure you'll recognize the student. He told me that some kids and teachers are mean to this kid, and that he doesn't understand how teachers can behave this way because it gives them permission for everyone to behave that way to the student. He said that this kid thinks different than other people, and he often asks a lot of questions because he's literal about stuff. Then he said that he admires you because you're patient with the student, and you never answer his questions. You always answer his questions, and you never get frustrated or make fun of him or say cruel things. I think one of the greatest things about teaching is that you get to stand up for what's right in life. And you are going to see things that will disappoint you. And you'll have a choice about how you handle them. And the greatest thing about my job is that I get to befriend kids like this who could change the world in the future. And I get to be a little bit different and quirky for the kid that doesn't play a sport and doesn't fit in Western Kansas. And that's really what brings me joy. Every day when I step in that classroom, just like John and every one of these people has said, you are the person they're going to look up to. And eventually, they may live their life like you model. So that's what's joyful.
Nobody remembers who won the Academy Award in 1965 for the Best Actress. Nobody remembers, you know, who the Best Actor was in, you know, in a certain decade. But I guarantee that there's probably every single one of you remembers a teacher that, for whatever reason, stuck out to you. And I think that's important to remember. That's why we're all here.
I just want to say one thing, and this is a little bit off subject, but I just want to say I don't know any of you guys. Table's falling apart. I don't know any of you guys in this room, but I know one thing about you all right now. I like you because I know who you are, because I teach with you all every day. Even though you're not in my building, you all share certain traits that have called you to this profession. And I just want to say, looking around this room, I feel real good about the teaching profession coming up. And I was really proud to be able to come here and talk with you today. So just want to let you know that.
Okay, we have a few minutes for questions before the speed round. So are there any other questions? All right.
Have any of you taught both high school and middle school levels, and could you compare and contrast those two?
My first job was at Marysville Junior Senior High School. I taught 7th grade English, junior English, yearbook and newspaper for the middle school, and yearbook and newspaper for the high school. My first job out. And they're very different. My 7th graders, I had my 7th graders first hour and hours 6 and 7. And I would go from having my 7th graders, who were all energetic, call on me, I want to answer, I want to read, and my juniors would be standing at the door waiting to come in the next block because the high school, middle school schedule was just a little bit off. My juniors would come in, don't call on me, please don't call on me. And so there was a little bit of dynamic shift for me when I had those different groups come in. I loved both of them for different reasons. I miss my middle school experience. I loved having that experience with the middle school. I moved to the high school level solely after that. But they're so enthusiastic. They are in love with life. At least they were then. I don't know if they still are, but they were in love with everything. They were in love with having a boyfriend and a girlfriend for the first time. It's just, those middle school years are so...
And I'm lucky enough
Yeah.
to be in a K-12 building.
Yeah.
So I'm just gonna tell you, every elementary, middle, and high are different beasts altogether. Their kids are different, the modes of teaching are different, and the types of people that actually teach, all the teachers are different. And so I'm blessed because we get to really work on our vertical alignment. Like I can go to, an algebra teacher as a 5th grade teacher and go, okay, how do you do this? Because my kid needs help with it and I don't even know. And so, but it really is, it's amazing how the kids change. I mean, something, like my 5th graders think I'm hilarious. So I have confidence. So I go into the middle school room and I'm telling some of the same jokes and they're looking at me like I'm an idiot. And I'm like, dude, everyone thought that was really funny. And so it is. It's a totally, all 3 levels are totally different.
Primary and intermediate are very different too.
Yes. Yeah.
K3 and 4, 5,
Yeah.
6, very different.
Yeah, it's funny.
Don't be afraid of the middle school.
Don't. They're
So if
very
you have
fun.
a job offer for a middle school and you're debating about it, take it. And don't be afraid of the middle school.
They're fun. I had a great time with my middle school kids.
Our 6th grade is in elementary school, but I desperately miss my middle school. They're a great group of kids. They keep you on your toes. Well, I think they all do.
Oh, yeah.
So one more question? Yep.
My question is, what do you think is the biggest difference that you've seen in yourselves and your teaching now compared to when you first started teaching?
I'm not afraid to, like I said before, think outside the box more. Of course, technology has changed. We have to keep up with you all and the kids that are coming up. But when I first started teaching, my biggest fear was going off of or being distracted from the curriculum. And I thought, oh my gosh, my principal's watching me. I have to turn in my lesson plans because at that time I had to turn in my lesson plans the Friday before, which is fun. And then, but it was scary. I mean, I was Madeline, I don't know, do you still do Madeline Hunter type lesson plans? Okay, really? That's not gonna happen? No, I'm kidding. I'm sorry, Dean. It sets us up. But I will say, because of that, I was able to then get better at my lesson plans and quicker as they went on. But that first year, I mean, every lesson plan was Madeline Hunt. I was so scared of veering in the wrong direction that I didn't take any leaps of faith that first few years. I mean, I really stuck to what I was supposed to teach. And it's not that, yes, you're supposed to teach what you're hired to teach, but I think now, after years of experience, gaining more confidence and doing these things that I've been able to do, I think outside the box more. I don't just say, okay, I'm going to put this kid in a low reading group because they're low. I mean, I truly look at a kid and say, okay, what is it going to take? What do I need to do? And so I don't know if that really comes with experience, but I'm really not. I think with technology and everything else, I think thinking outside the box becomes a lot easier.
Mine is that I was much like you. I was focused on what I had to teach, and now I focus on who
Yes.
I am
Yes.
influencing. We are teaching. We're constantly teaching, but it's just so much easier to get information into their heads when they trust you and when they feel safe and comfortable and they're willing to take risks.
Which goes back to the relationship.
It does. I think I'm a lot more flexible.
Mhm.
I think that I have a different view of what learning was. I think when you come out of college, you feel learning is this, like just taking a test and being successful. I think I have a much different idea of what success means, and maybe when you think about measuring success for your students, you know, like, I think I have a much better idea about what that means, or what it should mean. And I think, like, they're saying, somebody told me the other day, we teach the kid, not the students. Like, you're influencing the kid. The kid is what you're trying to get to.
I think in line with that, I'm a better listener because I'm teaching the students as opposed to teaching PE, better listener to their needs. And as Melinda's already spoken about with the differentiation, you have a class of 20 kids and they are all different. So you're differentiating all the time and listening to different concerns.
All right, speed round. There are no explanations this time. They're just going to go zoop, 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 zoop. Okay. Number one, your age when you first knew you wanted to be a teacher.
33.
I think maybe second grade, possibly not till college.
13 and then again at 22. Gap in there.
I think I was about 30, but I'd been teaching for a while.
5. I always thought, but I was sure when I was 22.
3.
Name your most recent pedagogical read.
The Global Achievement Gap.
Apprentice in Literacy, Transitions Across Reading and Writing. I
The
know.
Kayford Journal with lots of articles from Emporia State University hyper staff.
Mine was Choice Words, How Our Language Affects Student Learning.
Fierce Conversations by Susan Scott.
40 reading intervention strategies for K through 6 students.
The Promise of a Pencil by Adam Braun.
And name the pedagogical read you have had for years, the one that is still near your desk.
Space, Form, and Vision.
Teach Like a Champion by Doug Lemov, but I love Robert Marzano.
Kayford and Journal of Health, Physical Education, Recreation, and Dance journals.
Yeah, I think mine is Marzano, Classroom Instruction Works.
Why Didn't I Learn This in College by Paula Rutherford. It's great, lots of fun stuff.
Fires in the Middle School Bathroom by Kathleen Cushman.
Mindset, The New Psychology of Success by Dweck.
Is teaching more of an art or more of a science?
I think it's a blend of both.
Both, definitely.
Art.
I think science and art are like the same thing.
I do
They're
too.
just a no talent practice endeavor. Sorry, that
Art.
was more than 15 years.
Both. Art.
Name the one element of which you wish you had more.
Time.
Time.
All right. Name 3 adjectives to describe your teaching.
Challenging, flexible, and supportive.
Fun, exhausting for the kids and me, and effective.
Creative, inclusive, evolving.
I would say creative, collaborative, and innovative.
Entertaining, individualized, and reflective.
Interactive, energetic, and improving.
Creative, hands-on, and evolving.
And now name 2 talents, or we'll say skills. I won't use the word talent. Name 2 skills you want your students to have when they leave your classroom.
I want them to be creative problem solvers, and I want them to be resilient.
I really want them to tie their shoes, but I want to do Seriously though, I want them to have empathy and be able to problem solve on their level.
And I'd like them to be able to make wise choices regarding their health and wellness and to have the desire to be a lifelong learner.
Perseverance through struggle, hope, and that creative problem solving.
Confidence and a sense of inquiry.
I want them to have the ability to initiate learning from their own curiosity and to believe that they are unstoppable.
I want them to be able to communicate and also to be curious.
All right. This does conclude the seminar. I would like to thank the audience. You've been wonderful. And I would like to thank the 2017 Master Team.